Good morning to everyone. My colleague, Minister Piyush Goyal, and all heads of institutions, officials from the ministry, faculty of these institutions, and more importantly, the alumni and the students of these institutions of excellence. Think one of its kind, and I really put on record a sense of appreciation for the thought and the execution of this thought by Minister Piyush Goyal for the first time to have an interaction with students or alumni, the department which actually runs these institutions, to get fresh thoughts and also to give the view of the policymakers to you who are really going to be in the productive best years in your life in these next 25 years, which will form the Amrit Kal. So the relevance of this meeting for an India which is moving towards India at 100, with young minds like you all who have been trained in these wonderful institutions, is just so timely and appropriate, and I sincerely appreciate this great effort that the Minister has designed and put across. And the exchange, brief as it was, with just about 4 or 5 of you all getting the opportunity to speak, was a very refreshing exercise, and I think it has a lot of purpose to serve as well. While I like to take this opportunity to speak a few things which actually emanate from the various questions that have been asked. I'll start with the reference to Honorable Prime Minister's speech from the Red Fort when he said for the next 25 years, we need to be guided by the Panch Pran, the 5 very important, let us say, sankalp or motive or objective or principles, which in substance, all 5 taken together speak about really remembering the rich cultural heritage, really remembering the richness of our inheritance, and equally importantly, discarding what we've been inheriting by force, I would think, by the presence of an imperial ruler. So that in itself tells us, particularly for the young minds like yours, in these institutions, the spirit of what has got to govern the next 25 years will have to come from this message of the Prime Minister. Remember the rich legacy, the past, India's own contribution to the globe, whether it is in economy, whether it is in culture, whether it is in arts, whether it's in higher elevated thinking of spiritual learning, whatever be it, you look at each one of these areas, in science, in medicine. So if you start looking at the contribution that has been made, and you equally discard that which you've been superimposed by the, let us say, education system which has been given by our imperial rulers, you will find enough and more material before you on which, let us say, for your profession, you will be able to find the raw material. Raw material not in material terms, but the substantive terms, ideas terms, and so on. So if you were to look at it from that point of view, from the Panch Pran that Prime Minister has very elaborately spoken from the Red Fort, you understand that the first thing would be to resurrect, to revive those materials which have been used for centuries in India, not just textile related material, for many other materials as well. And at every point in time, we should remember that we have a very big captive market within India. Whilst exports are important, if you're able to first also think about this market which needs very ingeniously produced commodities, you would also be sure that you have an assured market. Then, of course, you can also think in terms of looking at markets outside. It need not happen sequentially. Simultaneously, you can also think about that. Now, in that, I would like to give one example, just an example. There can be many more like that. Particularly because we have the Footwear Design Institute, I would like to say that India, during, I think, 200 years, from 200 years before our independence, used to have something called the East India blue leather, which was a fantastically sustainable way of producing leather. And it was so sought after because the tanning, the softening, and the cleaning of the leather is done by a very organic and natural process. Something which we in Tamil call as, I forget the name of the seed, kadukai. It is a natural tree bone seed which is soaked in water, and with that the leather is treated. And that leather was much sought after because it has no chemical process of treating it. And blue was a big thing. Even today, I know some parts of Tamil Nadu which produce it, which is per centimeter length or per meter length. It's measured in length and squares of lengths of leather. Even today fetches a very high price in the international market, for purely this reason that it is produced in an eco-friendly way. And this was done for more than now 200 years. Now, if you could think in terms of producing, designing something out of such material, you're supporting those who have kept that sustainable way of using leather, at the same time giving a futuristic message saying that's the kind of leather we should, in fact, have in India, produce in India, and therefore you will be able to also attract a market which is now so obsessed, and rightly so, obsessed with sustainable materials. I've just given you one example. There can be many more in many parts of the country, all of which are dying purely because the lady asked me about how to empower artisans, how to empower weavers, how to empower traditional arts. This is the way I would think. If you are able to come up with more designs using such materials, you're going to be able to empower people who depend on that activity. So if that's one. The second I would like to also highlight as an example pertains to the jewelry sector, where design is important, where skill is important. And here I'm not just talking off the cuff. I tried an experiment, and which is going on in the coastal Karnataka area, where we set up an institution. And in fact, after quite a lot of struggle with the National Institute of Design, Ahmedabad, I had the curriculum authorized by them, a curriculum which was actually industry's own, the jewelry design industry's own. And I wanted to have the design, National Institute of Design, also to apply their mind that design also for jewelry will have to have a good stamp of approval. And finally, some kind of a material came. I would think institutions, NID like institutions, should be more open to such suggestions. They didn't care much about it, but never mind. That's a different gripe I can settle with the minister a bit later. But NID couldn't even think that design can also relate to areas like jewelry making rather than looking at architecture designed homes only. So design itself will have to have a lot more wider spectrum of application. So NID like institutions should widen their area of activity to look at other areas where design will be of use, commercial use as well. So NIDs approved some kind of a certification given. We ran this center in coastal Karnataka, where there is a big actual benefit in setting up that institution, because they have a very good, some kind of design instinct for making jewelry. So that institution today has come of great use for rural girls who come here to learn the technique and are now producing jewelry on the customer's requirement Jewelry shops come to them, place orders, ask them to do things, both handmade and machine-made. Now, I would think this kind of a thing, submission to Commerce Ministry, that such an institution, if you set up in places which have unique designs of jewelry, South, the taste for jewelry is slightly different from that which is in the North. Each area can produce jewelry with skills and for which institutions can provide the common facility for training, and that can even be part of your, one of your institutions. And if that's the way we're doing it, did it have a sense of success in that? Indian diaspora all over the world, even if they go to the Dubai souk, gold souk, which is a very fashionable thing nowadays because you go to the souk and find jewelry to your taste. Most of them are made by Indian artisans here, somewhere in India, Coimbatore or places like coastal Karnataka. So we need to give students that exposure, facilitate with some hands-on training, and then allow them to make their own what they want. And many of the industry-related relationship with these institutions can have. I was very fascinated when I asked the faculty member of the Indian Institute of Packaging, have you had any patents done for packaging? Have you come up with packaging solutions? They said no, because we also need research capacity. I appreciate that answer. But that cannot be constantly with funds coming from government. You should approach the industry and say, look, we have the expertise to design packaging materials or packaging designs so that the exportable products can have a very safe and attractive package. Design matters there, material for use matters there, and also adaptation to that particular sector of activity. So the way you pack fruits, which are perishable, cannot be the way you pack jewelry or medicine. And therefore, Indian Institute of Packaging should actually have a window for industry participation, saying, I belong to this sector. Let us say I'm a therapeutics manufacturer. I need to have a packaging which is going to be conducive for my product, which is not going to absorb it, or even a simple item like agarbatti, which has got to be exported. The fragrance cannot be absorbed by the material, but yet it should retain its freshness. I want you all to research and do something. I give you a grant, do it. Once you've done it, that will be mine, my patent, and therefore I'll be able to package my material on it. Some way in which packaging solutions should come for the growing needs of our new industries, whether it is pharma, whether it is perishable fruits or vegetables which we export to all the parts of the world. Milk or milk-related products, all of them need packaging solutions. And would you want to wait for the government's grant only for milk, only for eggs, only for tablets? Or would you please seek the assistance of industry to come and say, give us the solution, we give you a grant? I would suggest that institutions such as IIP, Institute of Packaging, should seek, not just them, everybody else, should seek industry's cooperation and have a collaboration with industry. Give the chance for the students to come up with innovative ways of packaging and patent it and be able to supply to the industry, which gives you that, center for research or whatever function. So there should be a greater industry collaboration, and that would be for packaging, I would think, and that would be for anything else which will be of great importance. Similarly, for other institutions as well, today's India's taste, today's India's purchasing power, today's India's middle class which wants to access best of things, all require newer ways of producing things. And that's where I appreciate Honorable Minister Piyush Goyal when he gave an elaborate answer on what the startups of India need and how much is being done by the government. From among you all, I think there will be a lot of startups which have potential to come, because you can tell us more cost-effective ways of producing things, newer ways of producing things, which will be important. And above all, I think for the Indian tastes and fashions, again going to Pradhan Mantriji's pran, panch pran. Even showcasing your products should be very much, which will be attractive to our own buyers. So please be showing your ingenuity, but yet be rooted. And that's what is going to bring out the strengths that India can display. India's soft power is so well recognized all over the world. You are the agents of change, but yet you're also the agents of continuity. So I would think this is a great opportunity for interaction, but at the same time, great time for each one of us to think how in the next 25 years, you will be able to come up with solutions. You will be able to come up with newer ways of showcasing India. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to be with you all and to share my thoughts.